Okay, it's October 30th, and I just wanted to go over the day and see it as a whole view at first. It was a very tricky day for ES, and if you take a look at the chart, you can see that there were a number of setups. This was FOMC day, and at the beginning of the day, really from the open up until you have this breakout down, you've got really only a 5-point range or so. So it was really tight trading up until the breakout, and then you're kind of prepping for FOMC, and then it's kind of craziness after that. So very tricky day. You can also see I got a lot of trend lines here. Started with this steeper trend line coming down here. It wasn't until later, when I had this second entry short, lower high, that I drew this upper trend line, fit right through there, and then the lower one, of course, as well, which fit down there as well, down there also. I have to say that using order flow was much easier during news time than at any other time during the day. Maybe it was just too slow, though. It was just too much back and forth and not momentum in any moves. There are a couple things that I'm going to talk about in my video. First, this part right here, this is really interesting. This is where bears pretty much gave up. So I want to talk a little bit about that and see what it looks like, not when a bunch of buyers come in, but when the sellers leave. They just disappeared. And then I'll probably take a look at down here. This was really interesting when the news was just slamming down, and then all of a sudden you had this one iceberg order that showed up, and it caused this huge reversal. So I want to take a look at that, and there may be a couple others that I look at as I go. So what we're seeing here from a price action perspective is we see that price is up against the trend line, that it's a second entry short against a bull signal bar, which is not the greatest, and we see that price has attempted twice now to break out of that support area. So there's a support line there, and it's made a couple attempts already to try to break down out of there. You see some big sellers in here, and what you're going to see, what happens on the bid book, it's going to get weaker. You can see it right there, get weaker. The offer book gets stronger. People are adding to the offers and pulling bids as it comes down lower here. In just a second here, we're actually going to see the sellers set up an iceberg here. They're going to absorb a whole bunch of buy orders. You can see that they're on the inside price, they're already stacking 830, 800 orders, and right here you see the iceberg come in. So you see a lot of selling strength right here, and you saw a lot of buying weakness. And now there's a little bit of buying strength here, but then it just disappears. Look how many orders are being pulled on the inside bid, over 1100 right now. Normally I speed things up, but this time I wanted to actually slow down the video a little bit, because I wanted to just be able to emphasize, the reason that we're looking at this video is to see how a price can reverse, not just because strength comes in, but because the prior strength disappears. And that's exactly what's happening here. If you look at the price action, you can see, or the order flow actually, you can see bids being pulled. So you can see a lot of weakness here. But what you also see is you see weakness on the offer side as well. You see offers being pulled. You don't see a lot of hitting the bid anymore. Sellers just seem to have dried up. Here they show up a little bit. The buyers have started to come in. In a second here, we're going to see an iceberg going the other way. But you can see all of a sudden, when bids were pulling, that all of a sudden the seller stopped hitting the bid, even though the order book was weak. And now the order book is turning. It's starting to strengthen on the bid side. It's weakening more on the offer side. And so you could see this all of a sudden change where the sellers were really excited to bring it down to this level, and all of a sudden it just kind of dried up. I mean, just look at the bids versus the offers. The active aggressiveness just disappeared. Now, what you also have is you have these very huge orders on the in the bid book. They could, possibly be scaring away some of the sellers, kind of spooking them into moving up. But at this point, basically the buyers have kind of won this particular battle. They've moved the price up. Now there's another Iceberg that came in. Look, the sellers tried to come in here with 916, hitting the bid over 1,000, and just got absorbed by the passive aggressive buyers here in the book on the bid side. And we're going to see this thing continue to move up. But I thought this was a really cool example where we didn't see active aggressiveness on the part of the bulls really. And we didn't see really all that much passive aggressiveness. There were no real icebergs there. There was one iceberg, not really an iceberg, but just one absorption here. This 588 down here got absorbed, and then the sellers just kind of capitulated and gave up. So kind of a cool example of that. Okay, so at this point we're really just a few seconds away from the FOMC release, and the FOMC causes a lot of craziness on the days that they kind of release their statement, and you get a lot of tight trading ranges ahead of the release, and then when the release happens, you get a lot of craziness. You can see that craziness start to build. You'll see a lot of wild stuff. So the FOMC has come out now, and one thing that you're going to see here, if I can try to get this just right here. So you can see that we've actually come up to this level, and notice in the volume profile, again, something I've learned from Pete, take a look at the volume profile. We have a huge step here. So you can see 10,170 traded at 65.75, 24,779 traded at 17.66. So as I resume this, you'll notice that this is exactly where that release came up to. Popped right up there, and then immediately came back. Now we see this big drop here. We see the sellers taking over. Just lots of prints on both sides. This is really hard, if not impossible to trade, although I felt pretty comfortable with the order flow, looking for key order flow signs. Just trading sim, of course. I would never trade this report live until I've got years and years of experience with it. And you can just fun to watch the order flow coming through here. And you can see here we're going to try to force down a little lower. And what I wanted to show as we get down here a little bit lower is we're going to see an iceberg order pop in. And yesterday, or in one of my previous videos, I kind of quoted Pete saying that an iceberg can often pause a pullback in a trend, but very rarely can it stop a trend or stop a big move. And this is one of the exceptions. Watch as this iceberg shows up, and watch what happens to the price. See it immediately bounce. So we're gonna get the iceberg here in just a minute, and here it comes right now. Boom, we get an iceberg there. And we see price. We see price start to take an immediate bounce back up. Maybe it was a cue for buyers to come in. You see that big, huge number of buyers pop up through there. So buyers then took control. And again, from a price action perspective, really nothing here. I mean, this could be a first entry short, but wouldn't necessarily trade that. It's a first entry long as well. Wouldn't necessarily trade that. So we're looking for a second attempt of something. There's another iceberg order pops up right there. And again, immediately the sellers say, no way, not into that. Bounce off. And then they start to go the other way. So we'll speed this up a little bit. It's already going pretty fast, just because of the price action during the announcement. Really cool examples though of these icebergs working out. Now again, take a look at our steps, where we need to be from a step perspective. Back up here to the 66 area is really strong. We're going to shoot up here. I actually jumped ahead a little bit, and boom, we get an iceberg right up there at the top, right there just below 66, right where we have a step. Defensive, area that was defended again this time by the sellers. Notice how much they absorbed. And the bears decided they wanted to protect that area. So look, 546 contracts versus 1,002 up here at the 75 level. 365 bids on 1207 offers. That's very strong defense right now of that area, and iceberg to boot. So someone is up there really trying to keep this from coming back up. And at this point, from a price action perspective, there's actually a second entry short here, and you could take a second entry short and play off the momentum that's going on. You'd probably know right away whether it would succeed or not. So here we have a second entry short entry. You could be in this right now. $64.25 is your entry. And I'm beginning to learn, like with one thing that you're looking for with iceberg orders is you're looking for the follow-on active aggressiveness. So, it's almost like I'm beginning to think of icebergs, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm beginning to think of icebergs as the first shot across the bow, and then the real shot comes in. So it's the shot across the bow to say, hey, we're protecting this area. It's the passive aggressive approach, and then boom, we're going to hit an area. We're going to hit up a certain price level with a bunch of orders, hitting the market, hitting the, in this case, hitting the bid. So you can see, look at all the bids that came through. Look at how much the sellers hit the bids here. The bears really just are beginning to take control here, and just a great example of this, the price action order flow tools in the scope of a very crazy market, and a lot of complexity here. But boy, very nice tools to look at when you're not quite sure what's going on.